Yep. Good evening, everyone. So yesterday we learned few points about class components. We will finish that point. So what we discussed is about class components in that state and in that event binding and life cycle hook methods. So these 3 points we learned. So state is nothing but class components have inbuilt state, we can use them. Event binding, small change. What is it? Every event that you have written will not be able to use the state. For that, we need which method? Bind method. Yesterday, I told you uh, we have to use the bind method. And this is our application. Yeah. So we have to bind every event in the constructor if it is using state. That is one technique. Another one is, suppose we are having a button and this is update. So on click, so it should use handle update click on that. This dot set state message is record updated, and it should use this dot handle update. But this handle update is not registered in the constructor. It is not registered, so it cannot use state na? So it cannot use the state. Let's see here. When I click on insert, the insert is working fine. But when I click on update, so it cannot update. We'll see inspect in the console, you have an error. It is unable to update. It is showing error related to the state. It is unable to update the state. Why? Because it is not registered. Now we have another technique. Without registering in the constructor, we have another method is here we can configure a simple event handler function. This function can use, it can return actually this dot, what is it? Handle update click, and it can use a bind method. It can bind with this. This is nothing but current memory. We can use this technique. That means without binding in the constructor. But what is the functionality of this is it should use execute a function, right? That means it should configure a function which can return this functionality. So you can return this dot handle update click and with bind. Actually, without bind also we can manage. Without bind also it is insert. This I think without here we don't need bind. On 1 second. So it just needs a return option, and it should bind. Just use the bind method. Some issue here. Let's check. Error is not coming. Update click, insert click, update click. So it should use bind with this. Let's update some issue. Where is this? Update click. This dot handle update click bind with this. Three techniques are there. Actually, written also will work. This is third technique. Okay, I will show you another method also. So what it is doing, instead of registering in which location, instead of registering in the constructor, you can directly bind in the call itself. By using which method you can do bind. So what it is going to do, it is going to bind, and you can see insert will work and update also will work. So these are all outdated because class components we don't prefer, but still to have an idea, I am giving this. So if events are using state, you cannot directly use the state. We have to use which method bind. And one technique what we do, so bind in the constructor, I told you na. First option, I give a note about first technique. Hmm? So that means here, yeah, I given first technique. No, first technique is binding in constructor. Second technique is you can bind in event handler. You can bind in event handler. You can use bind in event handler. How? So we have a button on click here. This dot handle click dot bind. Bind with which one? This. We can use this technique. So this is another technique. First one is in the constructor you have to bind, and second you can directly bind here. Actually, they used to have one more technique. Without bind also we can manage. Actual, you need an event handler. So this will use this dot what? Handle update click. Handle update click. There is no bind method. Now I click on update, it is updated. When I click on insert, it is insert. Without using bind method also we can configure. Why to use these techniques is nothing but one technique allows you to pass your own arguments. Another technique allows you to send default arguments that depends on your requirement. In this technique, we can send custom arguments now, right? So in previous technique, we cannot send custom arguments. By default, it is having which method? Bind. So people use different methods according to situation. Without bind, also you can manage. How we have to do? We need to bind the event like this. That means without bind method. Third technique is without using bind method. Without using bind method on click, you need an event handler. This dot handle click. without using bind method. So in old versions of React where they are using class components, you will see lot of bindings. You will see that in a class, in a constructor, so many bind methods are written because they are using different events. Suppose you are designing a form, it is having 5 fields. All fields you are using on change. Then all those have to use some state. Then all those need to be registered inside the construct. Or we have to use these techniques for that. So this is in a simple example. So to understand what are the changes in a bind, I will copy this. This is just an example for that. Okay. So how to use state, how to use event style, class binding, data binding, and how to use different lifecycle hook methods. In class, we have learned. In class, we have component did mount, component will mount like options. And what about forms and validation? So forms in a class component, no need to explain, but you have a solution. Huh? What is point about forms in class component? You cannot use any library that have hooks. You should use the library without hooks. That means, can we use React hook form? No, we cannot use React hook form because it completely depends on functions, hooks. So we can use formic, but we cannot use formic. Then what? We cannot use formic, but we can use formic components. Formic components, I told you, formic, form, field, error message. Remembered? So we can use those. We cannot use formic. So what about forms? You cannot use a library with hooks. So formic provides built-in components. Formic provides built-in components like formic, form, field, error message. These you can use. So class components can use so built-in components, built-in formic components with validation schema library like, yep, validation schema library like, yep. It can use the validation schema library like, yep. So you can use built-in components and you can design. I'm not giving any example, you already know. How to use that formic, I have an example given to you, you check that. So formic, form, field, error message, same thing we have to do here. So just concept I given here. that how we handle the form. Syntactically, just one point I will give. You know that we have a formic. Formic have initial values. Formic have validation schema. So formic have on submit like this. And inside that we have a form. In the form, we have a field and we have an error message. So that is. So lot of issues are there and these are almost not recommended. So we will not go more in depth about this. So our main entire concept is to understand and working clearly with our function components. Now, if anyone asks, can you explain differences between function and class components? What do you say? Function components, class components have a built-in state. We can use the state, we can set the state implicitly. But function components have to use by using an explicit which method use state, right? One more specialty is there, that is in class components. What about controlled components? Generally controlled component need properties now, right? A controlled component need properties. In function, properties are passed as parameters, right? In function, the properties are passed as parameter. In class, how? In class, how do you do that? So controlled class components. Controlled class components. Already what are controlled components we learned. I'm not giving the definition again. So only the point is here speciality is every class component has built-in props. Built-in props. Every class component have built-in props. It is having built-in properties. So you can configure dynamic keys with values. You can configure dynamic keys with values. It is having built-in properties. That means properties also built in. How? I will show you. Suppose I am creating, we have controlled components now. In that there is a navbar and grid. We designed navbar and grid. I will add a component here. I will add a component called toolbar. Suppose toolbar dot what JSX. I want to create a toolbar using class component. I want to create a control component. Then export class toolbar Obviously it extends react dot which one component, and here it will have a constructor. It will call the super constructor and it will have a render method. So render method is going to return some markup. It is going to return some markup. Actually, it is going to return a navbar. Now in this navbar, I'm using container fluid. Okay. In this navbar, I'm using here a division. For example, we have margin 2, padding 4, some border 1 or 2, something like this. In this, we want a span. Here we want a brand name, means the company name. Generally, in our function components, in the parameter we declared props. Props is object type na. We have to access and use the props. Here you see this dot props is built-in available. Props is ready-made available. Just you have to use it. Props dot, what is it? Brand. This is dynamic key name, your own key name. You can give any. And again, here also props is what type? Props is an object type which have keys and values. But you don't need to define anywhere props. It is already available, just use. So suppose that is brand name. I will use class. Font size is some 3. Font weight is bold, like this. And we will put another div. Here I want menu items. Then what we have to do? This dot props dot items. Items dot what? Map. Read every item, and for every item create one span. Here we print the item and we will print the span. So with key as item, class some mx is for some gap. Now right side I just given a button or something, and class bi cart something, or say person. So person fill, okay, just roughly. I want to use this and it is expecting two properties. One is brand and let's use this in the login here. So in the login, I want to use that at the top. So what to do? So at the top, we have to import which one? Toolbar from the controlled components. And this toolbar is a class component. Na? And you see it is expecting properties. What is properties? Here we are using properties. What is properties? For example, so one is brand is a property. I given Amazon. Another one is what? Items. Items is an array. And we are adding like home. So we have like shop. So we have like offers, something like this. And you can see it is going to display that. And we are not having display flex and all. We will use that deflex, justify content between, align items center, and you can see it is going to show that. That means here, what is specialty? They already have props. You have to just use them. We have to use the props and we need to handle. So we don't need to configure. So let's see one simple syntax here. So export class. So the component name extends React component. Here rest of your logic will come. Directly we have to use a render method. This render method will return and it will return a fragment. Just roughly I am giving the fragment can use this dot props dot key. We can directly use it. I will copy this example. Yeah, this dot props dot key. So props is built-in available. So that is the properties. Now example I will just give. So this is controlled components in that toolbar dot what JSX. I will copy this. You can use this anywhere. In any component, you can implement that. Okay, now how to use, no need to explain. Just I will keep login.jsx. Just I will give that option there. So you can now explain the differences between function components and class. In function components, properties are explicit, and here the properties are implicit. There the state is explicit in function, here it is implicit. Another important is here you cannot use hooks. Hooks are not allowed. But if anyone asks like, can I access a function component in class component? Can I access and use a function component in class component? Yes, we can access a function component in class component. That means you designed some weather app, you designed some EMI calculator, something that is designed using function. Can you access and use in class component? Yes, we can do. Suppose you want to use a weather app. So here we can design, what is it? Weather. We have EMI. Which one? What we created? In components, na? In components, I think we have weather app. So we have to import that. Import. So weather app. So from which location? Dot dot components weather app. In that weather app, we have to import, and we can use here. So this is weather app component we are using, and you can see that is working fine. You can access and use them here. So you entered and click on this, it's working fine. We can access the function components in class. Now, if anyone asks you like how this is possible, you said that functions are not allowed in class. Hooks are not allowed in class, but this function component is using hooks now, right? Then how it is possible? That's what you learned in JavaScript. In JavaScript, you learned that a class can have a function, but it cannot be class member. Understood? A class can have a function, but it cannot be a class member. Now, weather app is not class member. It is a member of return method. Na? So in a method, you can have function. Means it depends on how they ask you question in interview. If they ask, can we have a function in class? Yes, we can have a function in class. If they ask, can we have a function as class member? No. Function cannot be a class member, but function can be inside class. How that is possible? That's what your JavaScript knowledge is, right? Usually what happens in JavaScript, what you learned when you create a class, some demo, in that you cannot have a function. Suppose I am writing a function and I am trying to use a function, it is not allowed because now you are using function as a class member. In a class, you can have only four: the property, the method, accessor, and constructor. You can see it allows only those: a constructor or a method or an accessor or a property. But you remove this function here and put a method called print. Print is a method. In the print method, you can have function. Now there is no problem. That depends on how they ask you question in interview. If they ask like, can we have function in class? Yes. Can we have function as class member? No. That means directly it cannot be a class member. Now it is not class member, it is a member of print. So that's the basic logic. Generally in JavaScript you detailedly learned, but here one question I will give. What is that is the frequently asked question. Can we access can we access a function component in class component and vice versa? Answer is yes, you can. That means you can access class component in function, function component in class. There is no problem. So what is the key point? Class can have a function, but it cannot be a class member. Class can have a function, but it cannot be a class member. Syntactically, suppose you are having a class demo. In this, we have a function f1 like this. So this is invalid. It's not plausible. In class demo, you have some print method. This print method is having a function. So this is valid. That is general JavaScript syntax. Huh? So these are all important about class components. How to use controlled components in a class. So this gives an idea about how people used to build applications in old versions. Even today, if you see in official websites also, they will not give you any programming logic with classes. They give only with function. I already showed you official React community recommends using functions. But just for idea, because people who are experienced and working in some companies, they may have to work with this class for migrations and all. old version to new, they are migrating, they may be still dealing with classes, then these techniques they have to know. So this is general concept of class components. So actually all these days how you learned function components in the same way we used to teach class components in old version. That means entire React course is about classes. Entire React course is about only classes. At the end, we learn some functions and all, and we give differences. But now it is complete different. It is all with what functions. So now we have a complete idea on components, how to deal with components. Don't get confused again with two more points. If anyone asks, do you know component lifecycle hooks? Component lifecycle hooks are different. Hooks are different. Component lifecycle hooks are different and hooks are different. Component lifecycle hooks means component did mount, component will mount, component did update, component will update, component will unmount. These are called as what? Lifecycle hooks. They are lifecycle hooks. And direct hooks means use state, use effect, use context, use reducer. All these comes under hooks. Hooks is different. Life cycle hook methods are different. Don't get confused. So one more note I will give here. So component life cycle hooks are different from React hooks. If anybody asks, explain me component life cycle hook methods. So here life cycle hooks, we are having component will mount, component did mount, like this. And React hooks, we are having use state, use effect, use context, etc. These are life cycle hooks and hooks. These are related to classes. These are related to functions. Right. So now this is all about components and all. Now we will see another major concept is how to build a React application using TypeScript. TypeScript as a language. But first we will not directly use app. We will learn first TypeScript. We will learn what is TypeScript, how it works. Then we will use this in a project. We will build one more app with the TypeScript and React and full stack, backend database and all, a simple overview. Here we can't explain you backend technologies. We can't teach you that. That's not this class. You have to learn some backend technologies. Here I will show you integration, how we can connect with backend databases, design API, how to build an app, which you can practice. With JavaScript knowledge, you can build and you can practice it, right? So All these days we are using JavaScript as a language. So now the point is here. So what are the issues? What are the issues with JavaScript as language? What are the issues with the JavaScript as language? What are the problems in JavaScript? Because when you learn JavaScript, you learned its drawbacks also. What are the drawbacks of JavaScript you learned? So one is it is not strongly typed. JavaScript is not a strongly typed language. That's what you have learned. So, and it is not implicitly strictly typed. It is not implicitly strictly typed. So JavaScript is not a strongly typed language. It is not a strictly typed language. Implicitly strictly typed. We have to make it explicit. For example, suppose where age is equal to 22. Into age I entered John. Is it valid? It is valid. In JavaScript, it is valid. It will take. There is no problem. It will take. There is no issue. So JavaScript is not a strongly typed language. That means you cannot say age must be integer. It can be anything. You have to put external validations and verify the values and do. What is strongly typed language advantage? Int age. Then you have to enter only integer. But JavaScript is not that. Another point, JavaScript is not strictly typed. That means without following rules, you define some logic, it will work. That is the reason you learnt in JavaScript how to enable strict mode manually. How to enable strict mode, use strict. You have to enable strict mode explicitly. Otherwise, it will not follow the rules. That means in JavaScript, if I say x equal to 10 and console.log x, it is valid. It will take. But what is x? I never declared, but it is valid. It will take. How to prevent that? What we do? We will say use what? Strict. Then it says x is not defined. Then developer have to declare x. That means without following the standards and rules, if you write, it will work. In many interviews, they ask this point. Tell me what is difference between strong and strict. JavaScript is having both concepts, strongly typed, strictly typed. What is the difference between strongly typed and strictly typed? Strongly typed means it is about data type. Strictly typed means it is about the rules. That means it is verifying data type and storing only the asked data type, then it is strongly typed. JavaScript is not that. JavaScript is neither not strongly typed or strictly typed. We have to explicitly make it strictly typed. It's very big problem for developer because developer need lot of programming logics to implement before storing a value. So technically, that is one big drawback of JavaScript. It is not strongly typed. It is not strictly typed. Another point, it is not an OOP language. You already know it is not a OOP language. It is an object-based programming system, OBPS, object-based programming system. That means actually it supports some concepts of OOP, but it is not a OOP. In OOP, some features it supports, but it is not OOP. So extensibility issues, no dynamic polymorphism. There is no dynamic polymorphism, means overloading issues will be there. No code level security. No code level security. That means code level security means private, public, protected like access. We don't have such securities perfectly. So JavaScript as a language, it is having all these problems. So JavaScript language have so many issues. So, but what is the key point? This is the only language understandable to browser. Any browser can understand only JavaScript. There is no other way. So only JavaScript is understandable to browser. But using JavaScript directly for developers, it is not convenient. In certain occasions, it is not very convenient. Developer cannot use his complete skills of OOP and write the logic because it doesn't support. That's the reason what happened is actually means a small point I will tell you means you don't need complete history over you. That's the reason what happened is Google company so started in early 2010. They started Angular JS. They started Angular JS. Angular JS was built by a JavaScript only. It uses the language JavaScript. After that, what they have done is in 2014, they want to overcome the problems they are facing with JavaScript. What they have done is they completely redesigned this technology called Angular JS by the name called Angular. Remember, Angular is different, Angular JS is different. That is the reason in the beginning introduction I explained already. React JS, React, both are not different. Both are same. Either you call React JS or you call React. In modern, we call React because it is with JavaScript and TypeScript. Earlier, it is to be only with JavaScript. But there is complete difference between Angular and Angular JS. If any company is asking, I want Angular JS people, it's different. They want Angular people different. Angular people will not fit for Angular JS. Angular JS people will not fit for Angular because Google has completely redesigned a new technology called Angular. They built a new one, new framework called Angular. And for this Angular, they want a good language. Already they were using a language called JavaScript. But in Angular, they want to replace JavaScript with a good language. So they started a language called EtScript. Google company started a language called EtScript. EtScript, they started EtScript to replace JavaScript. Their intention was to replace JavaScript. But what happened is Microsoft company saw that Google people are trying some new language. Microsoft saw that Google is trying some new language and its name is what? EtScript. And they were very much surprised. Why they were surprised? Because Microsoft already built such language and they are having internally. Microsoft already built such language and they were using internally. And they called that language as TypeScript. That means Microsoft people saw that Google is trying something which is already they have. That that means what Google was trying that already Microsoft was having. But only this problem at that time is Microsoft is not a player of open source. They were not open source technology. Now they became open source. Earlier, Microsoft is not open source. They don't provide any of their technology to outside world for free. not free, it not open source. Means you cannot customize, you have to just use as it is. But later, according to market requirements and all, they changed into open source. Earlier, they were not open source. And they have a TypeScript, but they were not, nobody knows about TypeScript because they were not keeping it as an open source. Then Google company saw that Microsoft have a TypeScript. They tried the TypeScript. They saw that this is what they are again trying to build. So then what Google said? Google said that why can't you make it open source? That means leave it to outside the world so that everybody can use. Then Microsoft made it as open source. Then what Google has done for its technology called Angular, they adapted the language called TypeScript. If anybody is learning Angular, he is learning a technology that belongs to two major players in the world. One is Google, another Microsoft. Angular belongs to Google. The language of Angular belongs to Microsoft. TypeScript belongs to Microsoft, right? So the TypeScript language is not a new invention. It is already there, but it made public to everybody. So after this, actually, when Angular came into market, we were waiting for that. Means when Angular came into market, not Angular JS, Angular. When Angular came into market, we are waiting for TypeScript, but they were not releasing TypeScript as open source. Then do you know when in the beginning when Angular started, for at least 2-3 batches of Angular, we trained people in companies on Angular with JavaScript. And we used to keep on telling them that please wait, one more language is coming, but it's not coming. We finished those batches also. So, and we were waiting for that language and language is not there. It was a very delay in that. After 1 year, so this TypeScript language, Microsoft made it open source. Once they made it open source, now Angular started using that TypeScript. So we used to train people on Angular with both JavaScript as well as TypeScript. After that, JavaScript is completely eliminated for Angular. Angular uses only language called TypeScript. Now React also same. React 90% we ask JavaScript only, but some companies ask for TypeScript. They ask for TypeScript, especially people who are dealing with Microsoft technology, because TypeScript is Microsoft language, like .NET people. So if you belong to a .NET profile, then React with TypeScript is most recommended, because in companies that is their language and they prefer using React with TypeScript, not with JavaScript. Now, what is TypeScript? How it is different from JavaScript? What are the key points? We will see that concept. This is just a basic evolution. So TypeScript is not a new invention suddenly. It is a language already there with Microsoft, and it is made to public, and developers started using this TypeScript as a language. But why they started using this TypeScript as a language? That means what are the key features? What are the key features of TypeScript? One simple point we will discuss here. So what is TypeScript here? What is the concept of TypeScript? Actually, TypeScript TypeScript is TypeScript is TypeScript is a strictly typed mode of JavaScript. TypeScript is a strictly typed mode of JavaScript. That means you can say JavaScript in strict mode, it is TypeScript. So it has so many things. It is a strongly typed language. TypeScript is a strongly typed language. So it is a strongly typed language. And very important is it is built with the TypeScript. TypeScript is built with TypeScript. That means it supports all low level features. Low level features. It is built with the TypeScript. TypeScript is built with the TypeScript. Actually, any language is built with another language, but TypeScript is built with TypeScript. What is the specialty of this is the compilers of TypeScript are designed in TypeScript. Generally, you are using Java as a language or .NET, other languages. When you are dealing with other languages, they are not directly understandable to operating system services. Their compilers are built in other languages, right? But TypeScript is built in TypeScript. That is the specialty. What is the advantage? It can directly interact with hardware services, interact with OS and hardware services. And remember, you are using TypeScript only for web designing. That means you are using only for replacing JavaScript, but TypeScript is more than that. That means TypeScript is individually a language which is used to build large scale applications. TypeScript was designed for building large scale applications. Individually, TypeScript is a huge language. Like your Java or C sharp like language, it's a huge language. It is individually used for building large scale applications. Only the point is we are not using complete TypeScript. We are using TypeScript for web. Just to overcome the problems of JavaScript, we are taking only web related features of TypeScript and using them. So TypeScript is individually, that means build, it can build large scale applications. It can build large scale applications. It can build large scale applications. So it is an OOP language. It supports all the OOP related features. It supports all OOP related features. Actually, this TypeScript was designed by Anders Hazelberg. Anders Hazelberg. Anders Hazelberg is the architect of TypeScript. Is the architect of TypeScript. So TypeScript is a Microsoft language. It is a Microsoft language. Anders Hazelberg is very famous for his language called C sharp. He invented the language called C sharp, which is a famous language used in .NET. C sharp is one language. He is the architect of C sharp and he is the architect of TypeScript also. So TypeScript was built for supporting C sharp in web applications. So Anders Hazelberg is well known for his C sharp language. So known for C sharp language. But what is the point here is Can a browser understand TypeScript? No. Browser cannot understand TypeScript. That means TypeScript is transcompiled into JavaScript. It is translated into JavaScript. That means developer writes in TypeScript. This is translated into JavaScript. And this JavaScript is used in browser. Now the question is, if finally JavaScript understands, a browser understands only JavaScript, then what is use of TypeScript? What is the use of TypeScript? If finally TypeScript is not understandable to browser, right? The point is very simple. Actually, suppose I asked you a question and I asked you an explanation about that question. Your mother tongue is Hindi or Telugu or Tamil or some language, and you have to explain. You know very well about it. You have to explain it in English. You are unable to explain. If I ask you to, okay, no problem, explain in your mother tongue, then you can better explain. Am I right? Then developer's mother tongue is TypeScript. That means developer feels very convenient in TypeScript, but it is not understandable to browser. So it is translated and given to them. You see that, for example, our prime minister goes to France. So France prime minister can speak English. Our prime minister can speak English, but that is not their own native language. So our prime minister cannot express very well in English. He can't easily understand in English. Then what happens? Our prime minister will speak in Hindi. Am I right? And it will be translated to his France. Right? Why he speaks Hindi if both knows English? Because he can express very well by using his native language. He feel more convenient with his native language. That is translated to them. The same way, browser can't understand TypeScript. But developers feels convenient in TypeScript. Developers feel easy to address so many issues in TypeScript. They will write in TypeScript, they will give it to compiler, it will translate accordingly into JavaScript. And finally, it gives to JavaScript. And remember, you here, so I will explain, I will show you practically also. It will translate everything into JavaScript, but so many things it will not show how it translated. It will finally give you the result. That means now people ask question like, if JavaScript is not a OOP language, in TypeScript it is an OOP language. I written some protected, private, public like access modifier. In JavaScript will it show? JavaScript don't have a word called private. It will not show, but it will use it as private. That means you cannot see the output, but you can feel it. Understood? Huh? That means you cannot see everything what it is translated. You can just observe the functionality. You can just use the functionality. That means now don't think that you can see everything translated into JavaScript. So much is translated in such a way that it is translated in such a way that all is in the background, only result is given to you. Just like, for example, one point I will tell you. Suppose you went to a doctor and asked that I am suffering from fever. He gives a tablet and you taken it and fever is cured. Now you go to doctor and ask, explain me how it worked. He will say that he can explain. That means how a tablet works in your blood, how it dissolves, how it will cure, he will explain. That means he will explain the process that this is how it will cure your fever. Now you ask him, show me. Now this is foolishness. That means show me what you are talking about. That means how he can show you the internal process happened. That is what many people ask while this class is going on. Right? While this class is going on about TypeScript, they ask, sir, can you show how to show? That is an internal process which happens. Only final output is generated. Right? So I am giving this in the beginning itself because I will face this question in later stages. Right? I will face this question in later stages. So in the beginning itself, I am telling you that several concepts are not shown. They are just experienced. We cannot see the internal process happening. It will just give you the output. In JavaScript, it will not show everything what it has done. It will show only what is needed for result. It is the result. That is what you will see. I will show you practically the process, how it happens. So what is the specialty of TypeScript when compared to JavaScript? This all. Very recently means 3-4 months back, Microsoft have successfully announced that they have successful trial run of direct TypeScript in browser, which is revolution. But still it is not, it is just trial. It is not complete confirmation. They confirmed that they have a successful trial run on browser. Microsoft officially announced that they were able to run TypeScript directly on browser, and browser can understand TypeScript. But they tried that on their browser, which is Edge, and still we are not satisfied because it will take years of time to fulfill all the features, because we are using JavaScript from more than 30 years. Still JavaScript problem is browser compatibility. You know, you are using HTML from more than 30 years, but still HTML problem is browser compatibility. In one browser one tag will work, in another browser it will not work. You know this, na? Several browsers cannot use all the tags of HTML. They have issues. The developer have to use only which is suitable across all browsers. So for example, there is a tag called blink in HTML, which will blink text, but you will never learn about it because it will not work in several browsers. 90% browsers, they don't support a blink tag. Actually, you learned MarQ, na? MarQ, you know, now it is outdated. In official HTML, MarQ is no longer recommended. Don't use MarQ in HTML anymore. MarQ is outdated. It is deprecated from HTML officially. It is removed from HTML officially. If you still use it, some browsers may not recognize. Right? That means you need to know these points. Actually, you know, MDN is there. This is Mozilla Developers Network. These are the official people of documenting HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Official documents of JavaScript, HTML, CSS are designed by these people. You see here, I will search here, MarQ HTML element. You can see MarQ is deprecated. This feature is no longer recommended. Though some browsers might still support, we already removed from HTML. They officially removed it from HTML. You are still learning MarQ. Using MarQ means you are learning an outdated HTML. You are still learning an outdated HTML. It is not there. It will work, but it is not recommended because in future several browsers will not use it. And see the compatibility table, it will show which browser currently works, which browser cannot, which it will show all the details. As of now, it is working, but it is not recommended. Then how to design scrolling titles, sliding titles through CSS? Through CSS, you have to design. Like that, you learned so many things. You remembered you learned in HTML font, na? But it's not recommended to use in HTML. Never use font in a web page. You should not use font. Then how to set font size, font face, CSS through styles. Don't use font tag. Never use font tag. These are all basic rules actually. For example, you see, this is Amazon website. Na? I will right click and inspect Amazon website. And when we inspect Amazon, I am finding div, and you can see 1300 divs are there. Am I right? I am finding for a span, then you see 1000 spans are there. I am finding for a font, 0. There is no font at all. How come without font they have so many text effects? They are all CSS. They are all CSS. That means you have to know so many modern techniques in web designing in HTML. So we cannot use blindly whatever we have or whatever we know. We have to just use exactly what are recommended for modern web. So TypeScript is successful on browsers directly with their latest research what they have done, but still it is not a complete success. We have to wait for a lot. So we are learning TypeScript, which will translate into JavaScript. Now, how this TypeScript works, we need to understand TypeScript architecture that we will see tomorrow. So how TypeScript works, the TypeScript architecture, this we will discuss in tomorrow's session, how entire TypeScript works. And we will learn all the basic of TypeScript language. After learning the language, we will use it with React. For that, we need to just learn differences between JavaScript and TypeScript. Tomorrow we will continue with that. Okay, right.